Today, I want to talk about Hunter S. Thompson. I went to Aspen on vacation, and Aspen, the Colorado mountain town, the Beverly Hills of the Rockies, years ago, Hunter S. Thompson lived there, and he ran for sheriff. So I was reacquainted with him a little bit as I saw souvenir shops having Hunter S. Thompson books and signs and things. And I remembered how incredibly inspirational and influential he is in my life. If you're not familiar with Hunter S. Thompson, he is known for inventing Gonzo Journalism, most famous for his book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So Gonzo Journalism is, rather than being a reporter and being non-biased and witnessing an event and reporting it, you force yourself into the event or into the experience and write about yourself. So, for example, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, he is assigned to cover a race in Las Vegas, but instead he acquires a suitcase full of drugs, picks up his insane lawyer, and they go on a binge-filled adventure in Vegas, and he writes about the experiences in the hotel and interacting with people and his lunacy and insanity throughout the experience, where the race is just the backdrop. And I found that to be so exciting and cool. And as I built my passion for storytelling, I would still tell stories around myself. My very first thing I ever wrote was about being on the game show Studs. And then I started my zine, and I started writing stories about things that I would do. And then when the internet discovered me or found me in mid-90s, I started writing a new story every week on prehensile.com that was about my life. So I started looking for things that I could do and then write about. I went skydiving, and I went to the Over the Line tournament. I went to the Adult Video News Awards, went to Graceland, and writing about my experience there. Now, one thing that I didn't fully realize about Hunter S. Thompson, because his writing is so lyrical and so magical and mystical and surreal, in my mind it had this kind of like cartoonish, worldly thing where he was this bigger-than-life hero in this surreal world. And it wasn't until I watched the movie with Johnny Depp, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and saw these scenes that I had read several times played out with real people that I was struck by the cruelty of his actions. And that even though he not only marches to the beat of his own drummer, he creates his own instruments and his own mosh pit. And what I didn't realize is in his thrashing about, he does damage to people. He is so selfish that there are casualties of the innocent people that get pulled into his carelessness and his not giving a fuck. And so I started to realize that I didn't want to be the internet's Hunter S. Thompson. Whereas he was a prophet of, a prophet inspired by acid and amphetamines. I wanted to be a writer inspired by the vibes of weed and ecstasy. I wanted to be marinated in compassion and kindness, not just this not giving a fuck insanity. The closest that I ever got to a real fear and loathing experience was I met a woman at a party. We'd both been drinking. We made out a little bit at the party, and then she had my card, and so she invited me that week to be her date for her high school reunion. And I said yes, figuring I don't think she's going to kill me, but what a cool experience this would be. But when I got there, I realized I didn't have it in me to just be crazy and humiliate her. I wouldn't have mind been shocking to people, but I didn't want to my first thought was I'm going to tell people that I'm the bassist for the band Whitesnake. And I'm like, no, I'm going to say I am the director of a series of porn movies, including Ass Master 5000. But then I chickened out. And instead, I wrote a story about my mental struggles with the experience. And so that became the kind of Gonzo journalism that I like to practice, talking about my experiences, about my internal dialogue, about my path of growth. And the more I think about it, the more I think that, holy crap, how much of the internet is influenced by this shift of Gonzo journalism to putting ourselves into the center of the story, of being the protagonist. Would there be video blogging? Would there be blogging without the permission to write about ourselves? The whole internet now, I mean, it used to be when I first started doing it, everyone said, you're such a narcissist, how selfish you are. But now, everybody, in fact, look at how much of the web is people turning themselves into personalities, writing from their perspective, video blogging from their perspective. And honestly, there's still a lot of cruelty. It's very compelling. Look at all the prank stuff. Look at Jackass. Look at how much of TikTok is filled with a meanness. And so as I think about how inspired I was by Hunter S. Thompson, how influenced I still am by Hunter S. Thompson, how influenced maybe the world is by Hunter S. Thompson, I think it's also a little eye-opening to think about where it's led us. The internet, in many ways, is a shit show. Because not only do we have the cruelty and the not give a fuckness and the do anything to get attention, we have that insanity, but not wed with the same genius that Hunter S. Thompson had. He had a brilliance and an ability to really shine that light on the dark things that maybe we didn't want to see, because he got himself so dark that he could be present with it. His later work about politics is pretty amazing, looking back at the kind of vision that he saw in the corruption. And while I'm pretty sure I can understand and I know exactly what he would say about the modern state of politics, I wonder what he would say about this world of wannabe influencers, this world where the most common answer to what do you want to be when you grow up for little kids is, I want to be a YouTuber. Hunter S. Thompson had when he talked about his lawyer, he said, there he goes, one of God's own prototypes, a high-powered mutant of some kind never even considered for mass production, too weird to live and too rare to die. Well, maybe not so rare anymore. Or maybe the weirdness is not so rare, but the genius wed with it is what we're lacking. So, thank you, Hunter S. Thompson. And how dare you, Hunter S. Thompson? Thank you. I love you.